So I'm I literally haven't I heard about this video last night when I got in. I wanted to watch it while it was happening, but I thought it would be way more interesting to watch it with y'all later. So I held out. This course is weird. Apparently literally everybody's live right now. So this is apparently a horrible time to be streaming. But I don't care because I do what I want. It's 6:30. Apparently this video is like 3 hours long, and if I started any later, then it just wouldn't. I don't know. It just wouldn't make sense to me. I am. Oh crap! Hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. I don't know what that was. Um. Anyways, yeah. Like I said, I'm sure this is probably isn't like a great time to be streaming since apparently like everybody else is right now too. But I don't care. I do what I want, and um, yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know. So I do want to preface this before I even get started that I'm not dumb. Um, I do understand that like literally every one of my subscribers is happens to be fans of Vaush, and I do have I don't know. I have an incentive to be favorable to Vaush on this issue or literally anything else relating to him. He's super cool. I appreciate him. Him helping me sort of start out my channel. But I don't feel, I don't know, like my opinion is going to be my own. I can't help but like have my own opinion on this. So just understand that when you're watching this, it's not personal. I'm just going to say whatever it is I want to say. Okay? Cool. Now, let me pull up the video. Should be easy. Ooh. Where are you at? Where you at? Yeah. Okay. Again, I seen this happening last night. I didn't end up watching it live because I knew I would want to look at it later, and my opinions are my own. I understand like everyone, the other Vaush fans, but like I said, I'm just gonna give my own perspective because it's just the only way I can do this.
About socialism and about Hassan and about this discourse on Twitch.
Is it at the start?
There's something particular about socialism and about Hassan and about this discourse on Twitch that is facilitating a thoroughly unproductive conversation. You're approaching this.
Oh, this is the intro crap. I should be able to.
Course was primarily spawned as a result
everything, and then I look at them and they spend all the
set for somebody like Hassan. Like, is there any moral obligations that he has to hold up to at all?
Howdy.
How's it going? I see you playing Diablo.
Yeah, it's going pretty good in large part because I am playing Diablo.
Nice. All right, is your chat informed on more or less what we're going to be talking about today? Or should I
not really. You should inform them.
Yeah, inform me.
Okay, so
inform us all.
I reached out because I wanted to have a discussion about the type of political advocacy we could expect for individuals who have a large political platform on like things like Twitch and things like this. This discourse was primarily spawned as a result of,
Oh yeah. Also, I have no idea who Ahrelevant is. So like I don't have a bias towards them either because I don't know who they are. Like I said, if anything, I should have a bias towards Vaush. I'm going to try to check it in this situation because I don't like care enough to not give my own opinion. I don't know, just in case this becomes an issue.
The controversy with the Sun, and like what do we expect people to do when they have large political platforms on like Twitch or what have you, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wanted to have a conversation in regards to this and get your opinion on where exactly you stand on this.
Sure.
I don't.
Yeah. Hit me up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't want to hyper focus on Hassan specifically because this isn't meant to specifically target him, but more target like what do we do when we have an excess of resources while we do this, and what does it even mean to have an excess of resources? How much resources is an excess, and so on and so forth, right? But I might use him or reference him often just that way everybody can more or less be on the same page, because I imagine most of your audience and most people know who he is and probably know how much money he makes considering all the controversy and all that stuff. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Gotcha. Works for me. Oh, you should introduce yourself, by the way. Did you actually share your name?
I don't think I did, no. I am Ahrelevant, all right? The actual word irrelevant was taken, and I like it, so it's pronounced exactly like the word irrelevant, like somebody is a nobody. And yeah, I'm a SocDem political streamer, primarily like a React Andy Yeah. So, yeah, and I watch a lot of your content, watch a lot of Hassan's content, watch a lot of Destiny's content and stuff like that. So that's pretty much what I am. I'm like a VOD watcher. So
Fair. It's all part of the Twitch ecosystem.
I'm a
Exactly.
VOD watcher. Oh my God, I don't want to be one of these people. But
Of course,
here
my
I am.
opinion on the Hassan House stuff, I think, is largely a matter of public record. But if you want to go back over the basics, I'm happy to cover it.
Right. So, I just kind of wanted greater clarification on some of these ideas because I think there's a lot of missing each other's points when it comes to this stuff. So like, I think there's a lot of people that might think that some people's opinion who might be advocating that we do more with the resources we have are saying like socialism is win no house or socialism is win poor. Like, and I feel like this is kind of missing we're missing each other.
Maybe.
Well, yeah. Okay. So I at least want to come from a position of like, I think that we could be doing more when we have an excess of resources. And I think we ought to be doing more in order to further political causes, in order to bettering, our community and stuff like that. And to my knowledge, you are of the position that this is more of a, for all the dank memes that might get posted, a subarogatory position more than anything. Like, it would be nice for us to do this, but we have no moral obligation to go out of our way to do like a lot of, like, let's say funding of canvassing or what have you if we're a political streamer or what have you and we have excess resources, correct? Or
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and get this out of the way now. Like from the initial point that or I guess he just says irrelevant, brought up. I think this, like, at least from a face value, I agree with this. I believe that when you have, like, I don't know, it's like a nerd thing, but with great power comes great responsibility. I think this is true. Like, I don't think it's just a saying. I think that's like reality. If you have the ability to do more for a society, I think you have a greater obligation to do more for a society. Like, not just, or just to do what you consider is what is considered good. This is why people with more money pay more taxes. This is why, I don't know. Like, I like, this is why, like, even though I find it not to be kind of cringe with the like hyper focus on it, this is why, like, I don't feel sorry for like Jeff Bezos receiving criticism for like the way he does. Like, if you are, a hyper billionaire or even a millionaire, like, it doesn't matter. Just the more you're able to do, the more standards I think we should place on you as a society to do more. Because without this like baseline reasoning, where do we, like, I don't know, where do we go from there? Like, how do we, what does accountability mean if no one is accountable to anything? Like, if we all just exist and everyone can do what they want. Like, the reason we talk about politics is because we have beliefs, we have principles that we not just talk about, but that we want implemented. I don't know. So that's where I am coming from. That's where my position is starting at right now. It could change over the course of this conversation, but this is my initial starting point.
Well, I think it's good if we do it, of course. It seems odd to me, the idea, whether we're talking about ideology or access, to reshift our moral framework for what a person should be expected to do, not just like in accordance with what they could do, but also like how we treat that conversationally. Or to put it another way, if a person is I guess we have to use this as an example, but if a person like makes their living advocating for socialist shit on social media, and keeps doing it over and over and gets really successful doing it, makes a lot more money, at what point do they switch from being a positive representation for the movement because of what they're advocating for to being a negative one because they spend too much of their money on houses or whatever? I think there's a really ambiguous gradient there, and the best thing that we can really do is we can just encourage people to do as much as possible with the resources they have. But that's not really what the discourse is about, right? It's about moral condemnation, which is where I think my main issue comes out.
It's not. I think it's bigger than. Okay, I'm not completely unaware of what goes on, even though I'm not like super in about. I've heard about the Hassan House discourse, and it's not completely about just encouraging, like, oh, it would be nice if you did more. And it's not to say that like we can like each individual can control the standard of where we draw the line at what is enough, but like there does have to be some threshold or some standard of what is considered using the power you have. Now can we like implement this through law? Of course not, but it's a valid criticism if you do feel like someone is not doing enough. This is a hard watch. I appreciate it. It's very, very long. I see that already, but like we're starting out. Like I'm hopefully I have. I don't know. Hopefully I think I might have a lot to say about this. We'll just keep.
Right. So, if we're talking about like moral condemnation and like, I think that when we're talking about holding people to a certain standard. And
standards are really good word
where
choice.
exactly we're
Standards.
talking about like
Yes.
moral obligations and what people ought to be like doing with their resources and what have you, and whether or not I can condemn somebody for having excess and not spending that excess or using that excess, whether it be capital itself or money itself or influence. I think we could look at either one. So maybe I could be more amicable to any idea when it comes down to money or what have you. And we could start from a position of influence and then work our way to money and see how we get there. So when I'm looking at things...
Do you mind if I try something a little different with this conversation?
Go for it.
So the central concern here is about hypocrisy, right? So
not necessarily for me, at least.
Okay, then not necessarily hypocrisy, but I think, are you a socialist?
No, I am not. I'm a SOCDEM.
Okay, let's see where this goes.
As somebody who would consider himself a socialist, it seems like the person who should be mad first and foremost, like here, is probably myself, right? So I guess I'd have to ask you, why should I be upset? What, like, because people, I've seen this from everyone, like, Destiny, Ben Shapiro, or whatever, where they're like, I don't care about people making a lot of money and buying big houses, but socialists would. And I'm sitting there as a socialist saying, well, I'm not, so... Well, should I be offended? Like, make the argument for me to be offended,
Right. So.
Okay. Well, I guess this comes from a position which I don't know. People grow, people change. I will say from what I've seen of Vaush, like, which I've seen a lot of Vaush stuff, I don't see him overemphasize having issues with people. With people like buying nice things. Like I don't see him levy that criticism at anyone. Like generally what he's interested, like generally he just talks about systemic critiques about like, ownership of the means of productions. I don't even think Vaush has a negative has said something negative about the concept of billionaires existing. Now if he had like, or if he had some criticism for like people being rich, then that would fall under the line of hypocrisy. I'm like almost positive. I don't watch a lot of Hassan stuff, but like I've seen clips, and I'm positive that Hassan does or at least has previously made criticism about people being rich. Now, he may not consider himself to be at the threshold of what he would consider to be rich, but he does believe like that people shouldn't like spend their money in bad ways. That's something that I think is true of Hassan, which would be like other people can consider it hypocritical, like not necessarily because they meet Hassan's threshold, but like at a face value, like I think it's still valid for someone to consider it to be hypocritical now that he's like gained level of income in the last year, because I don't think he's been making this much money until like really recently.
I think it comes down to, if somebody has at least, I don't know, I don't really view it as an offense thing. It's more of if people are able to accumulate potentially infinite resources from perpetuating an idea that they stand for a political cause, and I don't even think this has to do exclusively with socialism, but like perpetuate the idea that they stand for a political cause, at what point can I say that, like, talk is cheap? When does the talk become the walk? Or is there no such, or is the talk the walk in and of itself, right? Like,
well, that's my question to you, right? Well, the talk is the walk when it comes to like being a political pundit, right? Like Tucker Carlson isn't dangerous because part of his money goes to like promoting Republican candidates. He's dangerous because he has a platform that tens of millions of people listen to. So, I mean, talking is walking when we're talking about political advocacy, because advocacy is largely a vocal process. But when it comes to like, at what point can you expect to do more? I think there is a good question there. A lot of leftists, for example, are upset with leftists in electoral systems who take up space. That's one of the central criticisms of the Democratic Party. The fact that they're better than the Republicans, sure, but they take up space. They become the left opposition party, meaning that you're removing sort of cultural, social, and political space for a genuinely left-leaning party. I think there's some legitimacy to that argument. You have to talk about what you're losing, what's being taken away. And in the case of Hassan, we aren't really losing anything. There's not a, what would you call it, a much of a cost-to-benefit analysis. The larger he gets, the more he speaks, the more people listen to him, the happier I get. It's very nice to see that the largest streamer who talks politics in the Western world is a socialist. Even if I hate him and want to be.
I haven't seen much of his old stuff.
So, sure.
Well, I guess what do you consider old?
So
I think
that's
I
my
started watching
perspective when I look at
Vaush
this stuff. Now, I do.
Early.
By the way, I do
2020.
think that Hassan should be doing more with this. I think that at his size, he could be doing unfathomable good with fundraising and stuff like that.
Vaush. Okay, we'll see where he goes from this. He I don't know if he misspoke or if he's using the word colloquially differently, but he used the term should. Not could. He didn't say could. He didn't say it would be nice. He used Hassan should be doing more. Now, oh, hey Delta. And see, you're right. This is your first time in a while. I'm glad you're here. We're still pretty early in the video. We're just kind of getting started. Oh crap. I don't know. We're just seeing where this goes. But yeah, Vaush used the word should, which I don't know. It's close enough to ought. Like I would consider that synonymous with ought to, which is, I don't know, counter to what position he's like seems to be standing on. I don't know. We'll see where he goes.
But it's about how you approach it. If your approach is like, socialist, hypocrite, big house, socialism is win no house, yada yada, we're not really facilitating any positive changes within the movement. We're just looking for an excuse to attack a socialist we don't like. And Lord knows I see plenty of that in this discourse. But if you want to be affirmative, positive, reaffirming, you're doing good, but you could do better. That's an attitude.
See, now he's saying could, should, or could.
Okay,
could.
so
this is a really important distinction.
I guess then,
like massive important.
Or what is a moral obligation that you would set for somebody like Hassan?
And no one says social.
Like, is there any moral obligations
house.
that he has to hold up to at all?
I mean, I guess I'd like it if he didn't murder or rape people. How fundamental do you want me to start here?
Right. So, like, I guess as a political pundit of socialism, or I guess we can do of being on the left at all. Like, what moral obligations do I have as a political pundit on the left? Do I have none whatsoever?
Well, in a purely utilitarian sense, my only real answer is that I always want him to contribute like a net positive utility to political discourse, right? Which I feel he does through his size. I don't agree with all of his takes, mind you. I don't think that he's always educated on the stuff that he speaks about. But as a net, if we were to choose sort of.
Well, okay, Andrew. Like, but what's up, by the way? Again, this is one that may be like this is one that may not be good for, I guess, my personal gain, because I understand that a lot of y'all are Vaush fans. But should no one. I don't think anyone's making the argument that he has to, using the word have. Have implies like, I don't know. Have comes off like super legal. Like we're talking about moral. Like we're saying if when you say someone should, that means if they don't do so, it would be like worthy of like moral condemnation because they didn't do what they should have. Like now, are they forced to? Is there an obligation to? Well, no. Obviously, we can't force him to do anything with his money. But if you're using the word should, then like him not doing so would be a bad thing.
Sort of the archetypical
Could is
frat
very
boy
different.
politics news pundit, I would certainly rather him be Hassan than some, edgy centrist or even like a progressive liberal like Philip DeFranco.
Right. And so I'm just wondering, I guess, from my perspective, I don't know why we would set the bar so low, and is where I'm at. I feel like that bar is set really, really low, and we do ourselves a disservice by setting it so low. I feel like asking for very simple things like
Cosmic Chaos.
once a year doing a fundraiser that
But I
you
do
don't
ask
even
You're an
have.
OG in these
Sure, but as like a moral
streaming
obligation.
streets.
What do you do if he doesn't meet that obligation?
I would say that you ought do that, and that it is bad for you to not do it.
Well,
Or Twitch
sure,
streets,
but
whatever.
I mean that's utilitarianism 101, right? Like, do good
Okay.
things, don't do bad things. But what should we do, like socially? What should the social consequences be to not doing that? Let's say you
Condemn
have
them. Say that it is a bad thing to do.
sure, to not do that fundraiser thing.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. I mean, in terms of like the distinction between doing a bad thing and not doing a good thing, it can be kind of fuzzy, right? Like it's a bad thing to not save a drowning child. And
Sure.
it's a good thing to do it. So the absence of a good action sometimes can be considered in and of itself a bad action.
Right. And so, yeah, allow me to be a little bit more specific when I'm using the word morally, a moral obligation, right? So, like I'm using what I've at least picked up as your kind of position on a moral obligation versus a supererogatory thing, right? Supererogatory being like you're going out of your way, you're doing something good that like you have no obligation to do. Nobody was expecting
condemnation
it of you,
and
but you went above and
criticism
beyond. Congratulations, thumbs up.
are
right?
somewhat one and the same.
What I consider to be a moral obligation is what you need to do before you are committing an action that is bad. You need to do this, otherwise
I guess
you are doing
condemnation
something bad.
can carry like a
right?
heavier
Yeah.
That's the way that I consider
weight.
it.
I guess the
to
more
it,
that I think
but
about it, when I tried to
condemnation
start out with
at
this
its core is
stuff,
just
I,
criticism. Like
I
it's
was
saying
told
that
utilitarians don't
you're
actually
not
have a way
doing
of distinguishing between
good,
supererogatory and obligatory
and
behavior.
because
When
of
you get right
the
down to it, you can make
because
some
of the
people
obligation to
overarching
the
or
responsibility you have,
superseding systems as you want,
that's
but a utilitarian will
bad.
never actually have a definitive answer for questions like that. It's just try to do good things and try not to do bad things. All questions as to what's obligatory or supererogatory are kind of relative, right? Is it obligatory that you give money to charity? Well, probably not many people would say that. It's
Sure.
supererogatory. But what if you make billions? At what dollar amount exactly does that distinction arise when it becomes necessary as opposed to it being simply a thing you can do that is good? In the
Well,
absence
yeah.
of a definitive answer, all I can really say is that I think that we should, as a general rule, encourage people to do good when they can and discourage people from doing bad when they can.
Well,
yeah, I don't know. That feels really that's exactly what I was gonna say, Alex. Like that feels like a bad. Been able to use the dicks and okay, whatever. I like that feels like a big semantic issue. Like, and I think sometimes when you use bigger words, sometimes bigger words can help you feel help you get more specific, like obligatory, talking about like obligations versus supererogatory. But sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it gets you further in the weeds and further away from like the roots of what you're actually talking about. I don't know if this conversation is going one way or the other right now, but yes, like even what we're talking about right now, I think they're obviously the number is going to be arbitrary. It doesn't exist out in nature, but it's kind of like it goes to that sort of it when you see it. The more you know it when you see it, whenever someone has some level of income, that it would be responsible for them to do more. Like I don't think everything has to come down to a hardcore number. Like, we do use, you know it when you see it in society. And I feel like being a millionaire and what some would consider using a millionaire specifically advocating for socialism, and or not just because you advocate for socialism, but like in general, means that we can hold this, and a millionaire who critiques rich people for being rich and not doing more should probably have some standard for themselves for what they should be doing higher than what they do to make money. Like yes, Hassan talks about politics, talks about socialism online, and that's good, but that's also how he makes his income. Like, he makes his income by talking about socialism online. So while that's also good, like, where do your values come at you in a way that's not profitable to you? And like, it's not a bad thing for something to be good and profitable. That's not inherently a bad thing. But I don't know, it feels weird when the only time you do something good is when you have an interest to do so. Like, I don't know.
I don't think that it's like something that just because there is gray area, that doesn't mean that we have to make an appeal to that gray area being so absolute that we throw out the entire
semantics
concept
at the same time. It dances
obligatory
around the
action.
subject of
So
whether
I think
socialists are morally required to do more than
moral
non-socialists, and I don't think they
language?
do. I don't think anybody said more than non-socialists. I think everyone should equally be held accountable to the value set that they like have. So if you are pro-life, and I'm about to say, if you are pro-life, if you are for like shutting down abortion clinics, even though I'm super pro-choice, I'm going to have a different opinion of you. I am going to judge everything you said previously if you have had an abortion. Like, it's not because I think abortion is bad. Like, obviously I think abortion is like a really good thing, but you aren't living the values that you advocate for, which is, I mean, hypocrisy. And you would say like the hypocrisy shouldn't matter if they're doing a good thing, which I don't know if abortion is a good thing. Like, I think it's morally neutral. But what I'm saying is, even though I'm pro-abortion, like, it's not a bad thing to call out, to condemn the pro-life absolutists who's, using their power to like ban abortion for having an abortion. You understand what I'm saying? And then Delta, a lot of people feel Hassan is doing a bad thing because his ideology says he should be helping wealth inequality, which he isn't. That's their argument, I think. Yeah, exactly. Because they're like, it comes off as being dishonest. Well, the thing is, Hassan's criticisms aren't just class based. Like I said, Vaush's criticisms are are generally like systemic based. Vaush's criticisms are mostly systemic based. Vaush doesn't necessarily like come at people, like rich people, for being rich, but Hassan does. Hassan does criticize rich kids for having big houses and flexing on TikTok. Hassan like does like say things about Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates having super yachts. Like, Hassan criticizes like people for being rich. Now, you could say like they're a lot richer than he is. Like, his line could be drawn at billionaires, which is a fair criticism. But like, he doesn't just criticize worker exploitation. He criticizes people for being rich and doing what he considers to be like wasteful with money.
Relative to what I'm using. Because I'm agreeing with you. We should encourage him to change his behavior on that. And in terms of affecting a better outcome,
He's using should
that's
again.
the best you're going to get. What I'm suggesting is the most effective way of ameliorating the problem.
Vaush really has to pick on that if he wants to say could or should.
I would disagree. I would think, in effect, that what you have is the reason why I use morally obligatory is because I can condemn somebody for not participating in an action that I consider to be morally obligatory. That's really the difference. Saying that, like, oh, well, you're doing what you need to do, which is just, say, whatever we consider to be, propagating socialism to a thumbs up degree, right? And I don't want to hard stick on socialism. This applies to all different political ideologies, right? You're promoting that ideology. However, right? Like you taking in you're promoting the ideology of socialism, but socialism in and of itself doesn't say that you have to go above and beyond.
They're not doing what they think is right.
Charity stuff,
which,
but we can hold them to that standard through a moral obligation, so that way we can condemn
to a
them
degree,
when they do not meet it.
Could potentially apply to Hassan. Because Hassan has said specifically, dude, you've got enough money to feed, in homelessness or feed every homeless person. Hassan doesn't have that level of money, but he does have a level of money to feed some homeless people or do some good.
The people attacking Hassan for this, that, and the other,
he's not
they're
doing
not
so.
socialists. Overwhelmingly, it's conservatives and liberals doing this.
Now, but that also could fall down to
here is not actually in the best interest of our movement. It sounds like it's in the best.
It also now that could also fall down to level of average workers. Even if you work a regular job, yes, everyone has a potential to do more, which is true. But I think that again, I think it falls back to that threshold of you know it when you see it, and if I know this is bad for Twitch, so I'm not gonna say it, but with the dollars that people make per month that was released, when you know the level of money he's making, it meets the majority of people's threshold of you know it when you see it. This person could do more and isn't, or this person should do more and isn't, and that in itself justifies critique. That again, critique and condemnation, I think they're two halves of the same whole, but yeah, that's pretty much it with that. Like I said, I understand what Vaush is going for in this. I understand what Vaush is going for, but I just don't think this is. I don't know. He doesn't want to hold people to these accounts because he feels like it makes it harder for people to do better. It makes it harder for people to transition to the left, which is fair. But you want everyone on the left isn't going to be a millionaire, billionaire. So I think it's okay to have some standard for people who do fall into those categories, millionaires and billionaires. And if those millionaires and billionaires don't want to move left because you have some base level standard of what they should be doing, then to me, they're not really left in the first place, in my opinion.
And trust of our movement, because you're encouraging things like consistency, good optics, self-checking, but in reality, it just seems like a thinly veiled effort at attacking people that you don't like.
Exactly. If you can put a face on capitalism, then someone can put that face on you. It's no longer systemic. He makes it an individual issue, so people are going to apply those individual criticisms to him as an individual.
And at most, that's a passing fixation. It's something we say, oh, maybe they could do that then. But with Hassan, this is a critical moral failing that has to be the subject of months of discourse. You see?
Yeah, so allow me to ameliorate that. I think it's because in a lot of instances, unironically, there's a lot of people who I would actually point to as models for going above and beyond that exist outside of, this specifically, I guess, Hassan. I really don't want to attack him specifically, but even you, I would agree, go above and beyond in certain areas where I don't believe that this moral condemnation would apply to you. Your consistent fundraising, at least your outspoken desire to participate in direct action, and what have you. Right. Yeah. So I wouldn't apply this criticism to you. However, I think we can hold other people to a higher standard. And this discourse has been spawned off of, like, again, Hassan. And so I think we can hold him to a higher standard, like even just a standard of, again, doing maybe one fundraiser a year, right? Or what have you. And I think we ought to push that kind of a standard over and over again. But to address your point specifically about non-socialist people targeting socialist people for this, I don't disagree. There's a lot of people that throw shit at socialists just because they think like socialist means you have no money. But I also think that there are people that think like me on this, where it's like, damn, it really kind of sucks that we don't really see, fundraising. We don't see canvassing. We don't see many of these things coming from specific people that talk about politics. And that ought change. We ought to hold people to a higher standard who are promoting these ideas and things like that. We ought to hold them to a higher standard because, if people like Hassan aren't going to go out of their way and support canvassing, who is, right? Who are we expecting to fund canvassing, to get people politically motivated, to get people politically involved, if not people like Hassan?
Yeah, I think putting that face on is like, I think that's like the crux, I guess, the linchpin of the issue.
An attack on hypocrisy, which just doesn't register that much in my framework. When it comes to like, well, who should be doing these good things? The answer to me is all of us, all the time.
Okay. So now Vaush is like minimizing the concept of hypocrisy, which I don't know if it's, but I don't know if he's saying because hypocrisy doesn't matter or he doesn't find hypocrisy useful. Maybe he'll go into that later. But hypocrisy is a valid hypocrisy is a valid criticism. Just because I don't know. I guess I'm repeating myself. This goes back to the same situation involving like the abortion or everything. Like hypocrisy is what makes people like how we can identify people as liars in some situations, and how we identify grifters, and how we identify people who like are bad for movements. Also, a movement like rooted in hypocrisy, like do as I say, not as I do. Like I think that's a movement that's bound to fail eventually. Now that doesn't mean everyone has to be like a Puritan, like who like an extremist that like doesn't give any room for people to like have missteps or have misfalls or grope their development, or just like not accepting of people who do a little bit more good. But that's not a knock against hypocrisy. That's a knock against extremism. Like you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect to not be a hypocrite. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is definitely a result of liberal hyper individualism, and which is why we shouldn't do that. We should definitely. We should really stick to like systemic critiques. Now that doesn't mean that it's not. That doesn't mean that I'm like I'm not like. I feel like I'm sympathetic to Bezos whenever he like people rag on him. Like like I said, with great power comes great responsibility. He should have a great responsibility, but I don't weigh my issues on Bezos or any individual billionaire. Like I don't care about that. I want people's material needs to be met. If that can happen in everyone's billionaires, then that's good. If that can happen in no one's billionaires, then that's also good. Hold on 1 second.
When it comes to like, I don't think that a socialist should be doing advocacy for the working class any more than the filthiest capitalist pig. I think that all of us should be doing it. I don't necessarily know if there's some heightened. Oh, is this a fucking Malrune? Holy shit! I'm sorry, guys. I didn't even notice that. That's good. I didn't even. To me, the idea that like people should be held to a higher standard if they actually advocate for these positions. In theory, it's good. It's conceptually valid, and I think there's some some worth to it. I wouldn't deny that. But in practice, it just seems like the ability to attack people who you disagree with, which is why these criticisms are all coming from not the left. Like we don't do this with capitalists, right? Like if we were like
I do
this capitalist.
Just to be clear.
Well, I don't think you do, because
Wait, okay, who?
with like first of all, basically every single political pundit in existence sits on their wealth and doesn't contribute a huge amount to like public causes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of their wealth is made, through more ill gain than what Hassan does. I mean, the wealth that he
Sure.
gets is done about as, I guess, not perfectly, but about as ethically as you can really
Sure.
accrue money in this system. So it would seem like we'd be doing this all the time. Anderson Cooper, Rachel Maddow, you're all on the
Mm-hmm.
chopping block. But again,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. It happens
Uh-huh.
with Hassan because he's a socialist. And if this
Right.
was genuinely not about hypocrisy, the fact that he's a socialist wouldn't even be a part of the argument being made here. But it is every
I
time.
can disagree with that, and I think I can synthesize why it is also like him being a socialist is also relevant. But to touch on your previous point about like Rachel Maddow and all that stuff, the part of the reason why I talk about specifically Twitch streamers in regards to this, and to some degree some YouTubers, is because that's the people that I have the most access to, the most connection with, the people whose communities I run in the most, the people who I can affect to some degree. I could agree that most political pundits should do these things. Most political
But
pundits should do.
I agree that
That.
they should, but there's a difference between should doing
Okay.
something and morally condemning a person who
I,
doesn't. So
I would morally, yeah.
if you were
Sorry.
in mainstream
Hmm.
media, like if you were like a New York Times columnist or something, can you honestly tell me that you would be dedicating any significant portion of time to like writing out the dozens and hundreds of major political pundits who have a higher net worth than Hassan and saying that, if this person was really believed in higher taxes, then they wouldn't
Well,
list this
again,
as a business deduction.
hold on.
Hold
That,
on. But
sorry.
it's rhetorical. The answer is no. You wouldn't. Nobody would. There's something particular about socialism and about Hassan and about this discourse on Twitch that is facilitating a thoroughly unproductive conversation.
So no, the answer to it is I wouldn't do that, but not for those specific reasons. I wouldn't do that because, again, well, like let's assume that I am the columnist or what have you, right? And I do have access to be able to do these things. I mean, I feel like I absolutely, at least maybe, I mean, I guess you could just call bullshit. I absolutely would call into question people's like resources and what they can put towards X, Y, and Z goal. I have no reason to. I mean, I guess you don't have to believe me on that one, but part of the reason why I don't criticize as much, like maybe the discourse isn't centered as much around other capitalist streamers or what have you, is because I actually think often Twitch streamer or YouTube streamer socialists are kind of following or trying to like catch up with other capitalist streamers. And this is something that wildly amazes me in regards to paying editors and what have you. The fact that it took so long to get a rev share model from Asan in a similar capacity that Destiny's had for years.
And
In a
why
similar
not
capacity
criticize
to
him
my,
for that? I think that's a perfectly
I
salient
have,
thing to.
and I have, and I think that these are salient criticisms myself. The fact that like I still don't think Hassan's mods are being paid, which I see no reason why they wouldn't be, right? In comparison to like Co Carnage, right? Who, to my knowledge, stopped taking donations and now has his donation link route directly to his mod team.
Well,
Like,
okay.
why is
So what you're describing right now has nothing
Okay.
to do with socialism. It has to do with.
I disagree.
No, I fully agree. Socialism is about a broader social model which reorients the relationship between the workers and the means of production. Vodding is
You're a
considered
social-
volunteer work.
Okay, you're a socialist that you participate in capitalism. That's not an effective argument, no. But something to recognize about that meme is the person in that meme was like basically a beggar. Like the person who says that we should improve the system was basically a beggar. There were a person that it was like clearly didn't have the means or the ability to do much more than what they're currently doing, which I feel like people miss as like a super, I don't know, a super crux like part of that argument. Hey, shout out to the Twitch viewers. Like we respect all viewers. We don't discriminate. But like if the person making that criticism was the king of the like was the king of the country, then like the the meme wouldn't work the same. It would be like, hey, like we should improve society somewhat. Well, yes, you have the ability to improve society somewhat. Like, why are you looking at me? You are the king. You have the power. Like, it's the same thing we hold. Like, why people get annoyed when AOC and the squad and like other like Congress members like talk about like policy being bad via Twitter, and it's like, well, you're inside the halls of Congress. Like, don't talk to us about it. Like you are in a position of power. Use that power to do better, and that's I don't know. That's like a really big crux of that situation. So while obviously Zahn doesn't make enough to like change the world, he makes enough that we can have a higher standard for him than the average poor layman. And they're like their standards to like be in a society, and if you want to be a part of a outside group, like it's okay to also have other standards for that too. It doesn't mean that those standards are like laws that you're like punished for, but standards aren't a bad thing. Standards are a good thing, actually, in most cases.
Pretty much every online community.
I
Pay
am
your mods
barely
is a
into this
wonderful
video. This is
thing.
crazy.
However, don't you think this comes off as a little bit toothless and spite-oriented? Where it's like, well, here's another person who pays their mods. Hassan doesn't. How can you say to me this isn't about hypocrisy when you're very clearly targeting Hassan? Like,
Oh, wait. Okay, wait a minute. A big part of activism in our country is getting the word out to the masses. Sure. I mean, like, if you're an activist, if that's your route, like that can be a part of what you do. But if I don't know, again, let's use a different one. Let's use who's another? I don't know, Ilhan Omar. What if Ilhan Omar, or I don't know, like some other insert progressive congressperson? What if some insert progressive congressperson said that like I got a bunch of retweets, I spread the word about an issue? Like that's cool. That is a big part of activism. Like that is a big part of what you do. But you have a different set of responsibilities. You are held to a higher standard. Like we don't just want, like, it's not enough for you to just spread the word. You are in the halls of Congress. You have you have a level of obligation to try to influence policy. Why? Because of the position that you like, the position you chose to step into, and the level of power that you have. That wouldn't be like a bad thing to say, like, oh man, why do you want your Congress people to like do policy? Because that's what Congress people are supposed to do. What up, Moon? Appreciate checking me out. But yes, especially yes, Hassan if Hassan advocates for workers' rights and workers' interests, then yes, it does add an extra stigma. Getting back to, I'm gonna keep referencing the pro-life argument because I feel like it does, it like adds the thing. If you make your money, if you make millions of dollars advocating for workers' interests, workers' rights, and workers' interests, and ownership, like worker ownership of the mean of protections, and like increasing minimum wage and like fair wage for workers, and you don't pay your workers, this is, and I don't know if he doesn't pay his workers. I don't know that deep into it. But yes, like if we found out that he wasn't paying his workers, this would be really, really bad. Like, it would be bad if anyone was doing it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not bad if a capitalist is doing it, but it's worse because he makes more than enough money to pay his workers advocating for workers. Hypocrisy isn't a bad argument.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. The essential argument here is Hassan is pro-worker, So we should make a ruckus about it anytime Hassan isn't the most pro-worker person in his field. Anytime anybody else does anything more kind,
So
it's a
Not the
mark against
most
him.
pro
No, it's
worker.
not.
He
All
should
right.
do
What it
something that
is
is
I
pro.
think
He should
people
have some
should be paid.
standard.
If so the reason why
Because
I
this is
believe
how he makes his
that
money.
it is against what I
He
consider
makes
to
lots
be
of money
what
doing so.
socialism stands for is I believe a core tenet of socialism is paying people for labor that they provide for you.
What about mutual aid
disagree with
and
that?
volunteer work?
Well, mutual aid and volunteer work has to do with like community organizing of a democratic origin, no? Like towards democratic means, no? Like establishing
Mutual aid? It's
yeah.
Just, I mean, it can be just as simple as volunteer work. It's
Yeah,
doesn't
volunteer work for
necessarily
like
need a
feeding homeless. I don't think like volunteer work feeding homeless is equivalent to like volunteering to be on Hassad's mod team.
Don't you think that
Wait, he actually
socialists
doesn't
should be
pay
paying people
his
who give their time towards
people?
bettering the community with mutual aid?
I mean, if they, yeah, sure, why not?
Sure, I agree. We should all be doing these nice things. Why should I be angry if a person doesn't?
Well, I'm trying to make the argument specifically about paying people that.
Wait, is Vaush making the argument that Hassan's workers are volunteers just doing mutual aid? This, I don't think that's what he means. If so, that's a really bad argument. That's big boy not good. Just Daniel. What's up, Daniel? Yeah, that's a big boy bad argument. If he's saying that like Hassan doesn't have to pay his workers because they're doing mutual aid. Like, no, this is bad. This is bad not because he's Hassan, not because he's a socialist. This is bad in general, but it's bad because of like he has the means to do so, and it is a degree worse because the way he gains his means is by advocating for workers. This is everyone sees this. The entire population sees this. This is an argument of hypocrisy on top of just bad ethics. I did not know that he doesn't pay his workers. That's big boy not good.
Do labor for you when I was talking about the mod team, right? So
Sure.
people who do labor for you, is it not like, I don't think I'm obtuse for saying that like a really big part of socialism is paying people that do labor for you if you profit off of that labor, correct?
I mean, it's really more about who controls the means of production. But yes, ideally, the abolition of surplus value would be a component of that.
I mean, I feel like that's,
would be
I don't
nice,
feel
I
like
think.
that's much of a stretch, right? Is like that, I don't
Well,
feel like I'm
I
doing
just- I have to-
socialism is win no house,
I have to
right?
caution because capitalism is all about like unrestricted free enterprise and market
Sure.
competition. But I wouldn't
Sure.
get angry at a capitalist anytime they donated something or anytime they bought something from a subsidized industry or whatever. If your willingness to impugn people for hypocrisy is as ubiquitous as you do a thing which in some context doesn't align with the reality of the perfect society you want to live in, then we would all be fucked. But Hassan is the only one
No.
who gets attacked for
Hold
this.
on, but because we don't do that because there's a lot of people that don't have the means to be able to avoid that. That's the
Correct.
key problem.
Buying
I
from
don't have the
subsidized industries? I think that's
yeah.
totally
I don't
possible.
know. I don't have the means to not buy from Walmart. What do you mean? I have to buy shirts from Walmart. I have to buy like all of my goods from Walmart. I don't have the money to not do that. Hassan does. Hassan has the money to pay his mods. You know, I do have the money to pay like my editors and stuff like that. So
Do you
I
have
do
any
it.
spare money whatsoever?
Yeah, I do.
Oh. Do you keep it?
Yes, I do.
There are certainly people who could use it more than you, no?
Is your argument supposed to be the arbitrary nature of how much money I believe is necessary before we can give it to people that do labor for you?
My point is that this is pointless. If there's behavior that
disagree.
you think should be changed, but you can
This is not good. Like we can't die on the hill of like something being arbitrary doesn't mean that it doesn't map onto some like really something real in the world. Like saying that the number like defining what number that people should like have higher levels of responsibility is arbitrary means that like it shouldn't be a real thing at all. It's not something we should recognize at all. Like it, I don't know, that to me that's useless. Like there is we do, people in society, like, again, it's everyone doesn't necessarily think of the exact same number, but we do, and Vaush would recognize this as well, understand that like when you like I said, when you have more power, when you do have more like responsibility to society, like Vaush isn't in favor of a flat tax, and the reason Vaush isn't in favor of a flat tax is because he does understand that having more means that you should probably pay more into society. You should probably have a a higher obligation to the society you live in. Like he believes this, so I don't understand for the sake of a debate why he's like choosing this hill to die on. Like I'm super pro debate, but I wouldn't say something that I don't know. I wouldn't die on this weird hill that like is against, I don't know, something not, I wouldn't say, I don't know if it's a core value, but something that I in any other context would agree with. I don't know. I feel like he's playing dumb here. Not that he is dumb. I just think he's playing, or he's not being bad faith. I think he's being arbitrary for the sake of being like
Do is
arbitrary.
advocate for it to be changed, but you don't actually care about. I'll be honest. I don't think you
Okay.
actually care. Well, hold on. I don't think you actually care whether or not Hassan does any of this. I think that you dislike him and you like using these things as vectors for attack. Because if you were really concerned with the utilitarian harm that he does, I think you'd be attacking him way more for some of the incorrect positions he espouses, not for these.
I do both.
Well, I see what makes the headline.
Do only socialists get? Do socialists only get called out for everybody? I mean, are there any other? I feel like Hassan's like the only rich socialist that I know of. I don't know. I mean, it's literally just Hassan. Which, if there were like a bunch of like really rich, like champagne socialists, like if that was like a big thing, I'm sure the right would like hold these criticisms above them. But I don't even think it's being hammered. Like I don't think it's being hammered. I think it's saying like, oh, okay, like you should do something. You should do something more than make money. Like if like what he was saying, if Sanan did like one, I don't know, big donation stream a year, because apparently he's making hundreds of thousands a month. I mean, I don't know how consistent, like if he believes he's going to be able to make that consistently, but apparently he's making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. And if I don't know, if he was going around like asking poor like a little girl for lunch money because he doesn't want to spend his money, like we could see this as bad. Yeah, I don't want it to become like a straw man of like socialism is when poor, like that. Those are bad conservative arguments. And it doesn't even have to be charity streams. Like it could be literally anything. Like I don't know. I think he's just like, does he make socialism look cool as a big dude, bro? Like, yeah, but he's, I don't know. Like now you have the audience. Do something with it. Don't just say like socialist is when you say socialist and do nothing else. Like, and flex. Like existing in a society and thriving in a society are two just different things.
Lines. It's not just you. Rather than this toothless attempt at constantly undermining him because people think he's not living the monastic lifestyle of a true socialist. Even Marx relied off of the labor that Engels' factory workers produced. If I really wanted to get, woke scoldy about it, I could go back to the origins and say that Das Kapital was written off the blood of, the proletarians exploited in Engels' factory.
This just comes back to it. Do we have no moral obligations that we hold anybody up to?
Engels,
they just do whatever the hell they want.
I keep
just
telling you,
do
you
whatever
can encourage them to do better.
Okay, so then I mean, at that point, like, if we're holding nobody up to any kind of moral standard that
I don't
they
know why you
ought to
keep
do
saying
anything.
that. because the ought doing things standard that you're setting right now seems to be incredibly arbitrary and fueled by a particular dislike for the person. Which is why earlier I said you would never do this for other people. People don't do this for other people. We don't see this in mainstream media, and we don't do this to regular political pundits. It's socialists. It's
Who do we not do this for? Who do we not hold to a standard of like the things that you believe in? Like people rag on Candace Owens for believing that systemic racism doesn't exist, yet she had like a big case with the NAACP about like racism she experienced while she was in high school. Like people talk about this, and while she was a little girl and like she probably did experience racism, like it was probably a super valid case situation based on what happened to her. Like people call her out now for the things that she's doing because it's grifting, like because it's fake, because she's being hypocritical to what she claims now. People do this, I don't know, like when the Republican Party claims to be like the Republican Party has like official position is like still anti-LGBT on the books now in 2021. Like that's the official position of the party. And yeah, like that's like when that's like the official position of the party, and then like LGBT members come out and claim that like, oh yeah, the Republican Party is like, like it's cool with gay marriage, and it's like, well, no, you're not. Like hypocrisy is something that we levy at like people all the time. It's not just socialists. And like the thing with, yeah, I don't know. I think Vaush is. I don't know. I don't think this is like a big argument. Like, do some Republicans say socialism is when poor? Like, or people who critique, you critique a society that you live in it. Haha, iPhone. Like, sure, some people do that, but I don't think this is something just for socialists. I feel like this is just the perspective that Vaush is like seeing it from in this moment. But I'm sure he considers a lot of these other levy critiques to be super valid. I don't know why he considers this one not to be valid or not to be useful.
Socialists who get these attacks, and it's been happening for centuries. Toothless cowards, that's not you, by the way, I'm mostly thinking of Ben Shapiro, who have no real counter-argument to our position. So instead they whine and bitch that the wealthy are just hypocrites and the poor just feel guilty, and that they don't actually attack any of our positions because they know they can't. So instead they go back to these circuitous, meaningless, arbitrary, boundaryless arguments about whether or not you're truly living as a socialist, living your principles. I don't know what it means to live your principles. Do capitalists not buy from subsidized industries? Do people who believe that animals have feelings not buy meat? This is the same argument that I had with the vegans. And like with the vegans, it feels like they're more motivated by feeling better than the people they dislike than they are by making an affirmative change. Which is why I'm okay with the good vegans, the ones who say, hey, maybe try not eating meat on Tuesdays. Maybe we could cook this meal together. Affirmative arguments that...
Vegans, again, like, I think that, I don't think it's useful to veganism to, like, call everyone who eats meat bad. But I think vegans do have a standard for what it means to be a vegan. Like, to be a vegan is, like, it's not just to not eat meat. It's to, like, not eat any, like, living organism, right? And that's, like, consistently. Like, I don't think a vegan, like, a vegan would say, like, oh, yeah, I'm a vegan, but I eat meat, like, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like, you could say you eat vegan meals on that day, but you're not. Like, I don't think you would fit the standard of what veganism is. And you're also doing good. Like, it doesn't mean you're not doing good, like, by like eating vegan 4 days a week or whatever. Like, I don't think anyone would say that that's bad. But if someone wanted to identify as a vegan, who somebody wanted to identify with veganism, like, if like my Instagram page was like vegan boys or whatever, I don't know, big vegan boy, and I ate, like, all I did was eat steak. Like, I had 30 videos of me eating steak. Like, it would be really dumb of me to say, like, are you really concerned with hypocrisy? Is that what you care about? Like, yes, we can advocate for people to do more good, but if to be a part of a group, we can say what we can have standards for what you should do. To be a vegan, I mean, like, vegans don't eat meat. Yeah, some people have different Yeah, some people go even further, and like you can get so far to a point that like it it does become like harmful to the movement at large, but they do have a standard. Like, vegans do practice some level of like vegans do like have standards for themselves. Like, I don't know if there's any vegan that only eats meat. Like, it's like exclusively a meat eater, and they say like I'm a vegan because veganism, like, it's just a feeling. It's just an identity. It doesn't have anything like any weight that comes with it. It doesn't have any standards that come with it. Like, of course it has some standards. Like, you're not like a butcher who's a vegan.
That change people's minds, not just an excuse to feel better than the people who you think aren't living up to their principles.
I feel like if anybody's attributing points here that don't belong to somebody, it's you to me. I haven't. You're like talking about vegans here and stuff like this. Listen, and you're trying to say that I really hate Hassan here. I mean, I've gotten
Hassan
into trouble
does get
saying that.
disproportionate.
Sure, but
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know my position on him, right? I literally get in shit because I say that Hassan is not a bad person to have as the largest political streamer on Twitch, right? I get in shit for saying that because so many people like think that we ought to hate him, right? And I could go down a laundry list if that's what you want me to do. I could go down a laundry list of why I think that's the case. If you want me to prove to you that I don't fucking despise this man, it's not coming all from spite. But you keep constantly attributing this malice to me when it comes to my positions, and we're never going to make any headway if every time I try and make an argument, you're just saying, well, that's coming from a position of spite. This is never going to go anywhere.
I haven't accused you of acting out of spite. What I'm saying is that there is a historic tendency for people to use...
I think that some level of gatekeeping, like, I don't know, like, gatekeeping has like a bad stigma, and it's probably justified. Like, some people like uselessly gatekeep, but I do think that like it's not helpful to the vegan movement to say that you can be a vegan and never like and eat meat, like buying and selling meat, like. And now, you know, can some people have like a gradient of like, oh yeah, you know, you've decided to do some good, you've taken out meat a few days a week, like, but like it's okay to have a gate. I don't think the gate has to be high, but there can be a barrier to entry into a movement. That I don't think that's always a bad thing. Like, it doesn't mean anything if you have like a movement that's so inclusive you can no longer do the good that you want to do. Like, the movement has to mean something. It has to stand for something, right? And you don't have to don't get mad at them for not meeting your standards, and maybe encourage them to do so instead. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's helpful to get mad, but getting mad and critiquing someone, I don't think these are the same thing.
These arguments against socialists. Now, I'm impugning people broadly here because there's been mainstream attacks against Hassan for stuff like this. But you are, I think, participating in the same general bias that exists here. There's a reason why we're not having this conversation about some random capitalist YouTuber who hasn't spent enough money donating to, like, centrist Democrat causes, you know? We don't go up to, like, random giant centrists online and go, like, why haven't you, you know, donated to Joe Manchin or whatever? This is very specifically a thing that people do to socialists. And for that reason,
not a specific thing that people do to socialists.
All this ever does practically is stir up resentment and
people are gonna levy, like, people are relative to what's going on around them. Like, people on the left are going to, like, are going to like levy their criticisms generally around leaders within the left because that's what's closer to them relative. Like, yes, there's critiques to be had for the right as well, but like, I don't know. Like, if someone, like, knowing that someone doing worse isn't always, like, knowing that someone's doing worse isn't always, like, isn't always relevant. Like, if I say, like, oh, yeah, my mom, I don't know, my mom's abusive at home, and that's my situation that I'm living in, and someone else decides to say, like, yeah, but Chris's mom is way worse, and it would be kind of like, like, do you really care about this issue? If you would have, like, you would have mentioned Chris's mom first. Like, I don't know. I think that, like, I'm talking about my mom because that's more relevant to me. That's my more direct situation. Like, Chris's mom could be worse, and that can also suck. But, like, it's not a bad thing for people within a movement to lever their criticisms, like, it's not. I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's not surprising that people within a movement are gonna levy their criticisms more relative to the people that they surround themselves with.
Discourse on the left, this seems like an attack on socialism. It doesn't make our movement better or stronger, it's being inaccurately and
standards can definitely make your movement better and stronger.
If you really cared about the changes being made, you would apply them ubiquitously, not just with Hassan. So what am I to take from that? I mean, does it not
Okay,
feel...
where do you think I'm not applying the criticism ubiquitously?
I'm just going to take a guess, and I could be wrong, but you probably haven't made a bunch of content about every other wealthy person who doesn't have a lot of money on the books being spent on...
Again, this is a bad argument. Like, it's going to be relative. Why would I talk about every other level? Like, sure, I could talk about every other, like, wealthy person, but it's not wrong for me to focus on the situation most relative to me. Most, like this isn't some gotcha thing. Hassan is the most relevant socialist. So if you're going to discuss something relating to, like, socialism or streaming, if you're a streamer who talks about, like, social left-leaning politics, levying criticism at the largest left-leaning politic people, it kind of comes with the territory. Like, these are the people most relevant to your movement. Like, why am I going to talk about, like, spend the exact same amount of time talking to someone, like, one of the most relevant people in my field versus talking about some, like, African oil driller?
Causes relative to their political position.
Do I have to do that before I can even criticize one dude?
So, given that one of my positions is that this critique is often applied lopsidedly towards socialists, that would be something I'd be interested in knowing. It's not just you, friend. It's, like, everyone. There's a reason for that.
That's what I've said. I've said this. Wait, hold on. So I've said that, like, I would apply this to everybody on the political spectrum that does not participate in what I would consider to be many of these actions that I've listed so far.
Well, everyone says that, but we see who gets the headlines, right?
Okay, can you point me to a specific person you're looking for me to morally condemn for this shit? I mean, you've pointed me in a direction, and I already agree, but, like, I don't think I'm going to make headway to Rachel Maddow.
I think the arguments that you're making right now are pretty much universally applicable against any kind of pundit or newscaster.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I don't think I'm going to make headway with Rachel Maddow, though.
Okay, well, let's be fair. You're not with Hassan either, right? Even I couldn't make headway with Hassan, and I'm the guy directly beneath him in terms of size.
Hold on. But I can contribute to a narrative that is portrayed in the space that Hassan is in, and avoid people from making arguments I would consider to be bad or just not well informed on what we could be making and pushing people to use their power effectively.
How about Bastiat?
What about Bastiat?
Bastiat makes more money than I do. Do you know of any public efforts he's made to raise money for any pro-neoliberal causes or any donations he's made to said candidates?
I had no idea about the amount of money Bastier made.
Well, he's a lawyer.
Personally, lawyers don't make as much money as you, right? They don't make 1/5 of as much money as you.
Oh, well, it seems that he makes a decent amount of money. I mean, do you think that he's doing enough to live by his principles, or do you think he's just sitting on his
considering
laurels?
the median lawyer makes like $100,000? Yeah, I'm not expecting somebody to who makes that much money to be going out of their way to commit to political action large scale.
Does
No.
Bastier make a lot
I'd
of
say
money?
when you're making that, I'm not even sure I would put you in a bin where I would morally obligate you to do this. When you're talking about that gray area that you were referencing before, and you're lumping in average people or people like me or my mother who make fucking $30K a year, all right? I wouldn't lump us in.
We're not
Hold
talking
on,
about 30K.
because you're trying to say that well, this could be applied to anybody. It can't. I'm talking about people with excess, people who are making $1 million a year surplus is what I'm talking about, right? When you're making that kind of
Why
money,
not 500,000?
well, this is what I mean. You're making appeals to the exact precise money, and you're saying because I cannot root some objective, quantifiable, precise point.
wait.
You know it
Hold on.
when you
That
see
therefore
it.
you're throwing away the
Appreciate
entire
it, Chris.
concept
I'm
of maybe if you're
really
making $1
enjoying
million
doing this.
surplus
So,
a year, that
thanks
you
for-
can
thanks
afford
for
to
checking me
pay
out.
a mod
Yeah.
$5
Then why not?
a week.
If we're just choosing an arbitrary line, then why not 10 million? I don't.
Yes, it's arbitrary. We get it, Vaush. It's arbitrary. That's not enough by itself. Oh my goodness, I am going to ruin and I'm going to ruin any good faith I had at this point. And I'm trying really hard not to. Something being arbitrary doesn't mean it's not a real thing that exists, and it's not a real thing that we're mapping on the social concept to. I get that it's arbitrary, and I get that we may not be able to hold it down to some exact number, but it's still real, and Vaush knows it, and Vaush believes it personally, and he's so way too interested in trying to win this argument than having a real conversation.
I think Hassan makes 10 million a year. Yeah,
Sure.
be clear.
If you legitimately want to stake your opinion at 10 million, I will fully take that. I will 100% take that. If you commit, somebody makes $10 million, let's say you make $10 million in the next year or whatever, and you stake that, sure. I just think that not a ridiculous point is $1 million surplus. And part of the reason why I use this amount of money is because if you look at how much money you can make off of that money, just for instance, being in a account, acquiring interest from the markets, he will make $100,000 a year from just breathing.
Why not just being the top 1%? And I'm not saying I'm not even talking about doing extra stuff. I'm talking about if you have employees paying them. Because around here we call unpaid employees, we call those slaves. And I mean, they're not even wage slaves if they're not getting paid anything. They're just slaves, which isn't good. Last time I checked.
Oxygen and having that money acquire interest after inflation. That is an unfathomable amount of money to the average person. When you make
I know
so
he's
much money,
wealthy.
no, but that's at that point, right? You don't have to work to live. You work 1 year and then you live the rest of your life.
These seems to me like tangential arguments at most.
So
I'm
the reason
fully
why
aware that he's extremely wealthy. He's the largest political streamer in the history of the English-speaking world. It's very impressive.
Okay. So the reason why I'm making appeals to this is because I think that is a fair metric to hold. That if you're making so much money that you only have to do your job for 1 year, then you never have to work for a single day for the rest of your life. You agree that's probably a fair metric to say that maybe there could be some resource spread that could happen.
There could always be some resource spread that could happen. Do you think I don't advocate?
No,
I
hold on.
advocate for my chatters to donate whenever I'm doing a fundraiser stream.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that I would stop making that request of them because they make less than $1 million a year? Of course not.
I'm not saying
we
that
should
we
all do.
I'm not saying that it's
Stop
not
saying
something that we
should,
should all
Vaush. You
do.
don't
What I'm
mean
saying is
should,
at
you
some
mean
point
could.
we can easily say that, at this level
I mean
of,
should.
of resource accumulation and income, because I want to divorce income from wealth, because if he just had like $3 million, fuck it, $10 million or what have you, just sitting inside of a fucking account, right? Like, hey, listen, I'm not too sure about that, right? Income is a lot more like, you know, that's something that you can grab onto in comparison to something that might be a little bit more slippery.
Why not
right?
just advocate for everyone to do it if it's within their means?
Because I agree. So that's what I'm trying to prove is what is in your means. And I think the in your means, when you're talking about making so much money that you never have to work for the rest of your life, I think that is a fair metric for in your means. Do you agree or disagree?
I think, well, sure, but I think the bar for in your means is well below that. We don't say that a person can only donate if they're making like the median U.S. income every single month, right? I mean,
and
you can go
Vaush,
way below
I'm not trying to make the argument that that's the level that we have to go with donate, but we've already made headway. We agree that he's at a level where he can donate. My point.
But I never disagreed with that, though.
You were completely right. This is a very, very tough watch. And then the thing is, like, I don't know, he's doing this, like, he's looking for this gotcha, but the things he's saying is right. Like, the things he's saying are, like, unironically right. Like, oh, yeah, like, you know, like, everyone should who within their means. Like, don't say it if you don't mean it, because I agree. I think everyone who can do something within their means, do something good within their means, should do something. They don't have to do everything, but like, if you have the means to do some good, you should do some good. Like some good that's like non-profitable to you. I believe, I unironically believe this. And when I'm saying should, not could, not it would be nice to, I think like you should, because we're like, I make prescriptive statements. I like descriptive statements are, I don't know, it's boring. No one would care about politics if all we wanted to do was make descriptive statements all the time. We want to tell people what they should do.
Okay, but my point
we're trying to say what society should
is
be.
that if we agree that there is a level of access that like he can donate or what have you, that is quite far away from like in any way, shape, or form hurting him if he were to donate, then like why wouldn't we advocate that somebody who believes in these ideas, believes in the mutual aid, mobilization of a viewer base or what have you, actually do these things like fundraise? Well, no, advocate for it in a way that we can talk about like moral obligation. Like, why is it that you're
asking me to commit? You're asking me to commit to a position that I don't think my ethical foundation has a way of accurately describing. You have engaged in an unfathomable degree of arbitrariety over the course of this conversation. We both know, and just to be clear how like hemming we are on this, okay? We both know that the standards you're applying right now are applicable to virtually every large political pundit, okay?
I don't care about
when we're talking about political advocacy in general. This is what I'm talking about.
Okay, let me give you an example, I guess, of where I'm coming from here, right? Okay, so let's imagine we were talking about cancel culture. So it's something I've talked about a lot, and imagine that you come on here to talk about the cancel culture lefties. Let's say you're a conservative, okay? I know you're not, but let's say, okay. And you're talking about cancel culture lefties, and I'll agree with some of your points and disagree with a lot of other ones, you know. But at some point during that conversation, I'm going to have to bring up the fact that cancel culture as a talking point is always brought up to attack the left when the right does it as much, if not more. And then you would say, oh, well, I dislike it when it's done on the right as well. You know, we're just talking about me. Don't assign like...
I think that the part of the core issue is we have 3 states. 1 has the ability. 2, it would be ideal if they did. 3 has the responsibility. And we only have the words could and should. Vaush uses should as 2. So 2, it would be ideal if they did. Yeah, no, okay. That's like, yeah, like definition wise, like that's exactly what he's doing, which I don't know. It's kind of, I'm about to say it's like messing me up that that's what he's doing, but it makes sense. I get it. And thanks, Alex, for saying that, because that like really contextualizes things. I don't know. The issue with 2 is I don't know any other issue that Vaush is like willing to make this statement on. Like, would he use should this way in an argument? I don't know. I keep going to abortions. Like, I don't know. I think just because like when you go to like more hyperbolic issues, it helps people like understand the core of the argument. Like, Vaush is pro-choice. I'm pro-choice. Like, part of being pro-choice is like not being pro-abortion. Vaush seeks an ideal society where no one has abortions. Because not because like they don't have the right to, but because like people aren't having unwanted pregnancies. But I don't think Vaush would ever say, like, if someone said that like like if someone, I don't think Vaush would ever make the argument that someone should not get an abortion, because like even though like technically it would be ideal if they did, like if they were in a situation where they didn't like need one, like Vaush would never use the word like should in that situation because he understands the weight of what should holds. And again, that's like one example, but like literally any example, I don't think Vaush would ever use should in any other context that way. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to throw out bad faith, like it, because that, I don't know, that like I believe Vaush thinks he's being honest, like from like a core, deep rooted principle, like, logic lord place. Like I don't think he feels he's being dishonest. I think he I don't know. I think he's like over. I think he's trying to like oversimplify an issue. I think he's trying to oversimplify an issue for the sake of winning, or the sake of coming out optically, like winning the optics of a discussion. And I don't think that's necessarily the same thing as bad faith. Like, because if yeah, if this was a conversation that wasn't being streamed, if this wasn't like framed as a debate, and they were having, I don't know, like I think Vaush, like in a normal conversation where there wasn't a winner or loser at the end of this, like as far as like among fans, I think he would be willing to bite a few more bullets or accept more things than he is willing to in this conversation. Yeah, like yeah, in that case, like Vaj is generally consistent about this. Like I'm not saying his position isn't consistent. Like it is consistent, but he's trying to, like, it would be one thing if Vaj says like, oh, this just isn't important to me. Vash is trying to say that the position itself is bad, which is two different things. Like Vash himself not like holding this position or this value as something that's important to him as an individual is one thing. He's trying to say that like Ahrelevant is holding this position in bad faith, or like no, like, or the critique isn't valid, which is completely different. I believe the critique is completely valid, even if Vash wouldn't use it himself. Like, even if it isn't what he cares about.
Broader intent based on the conversations you've had with other people. And I would say, okay, fair, but it's a little difficult for me to ignore the fact that this is overwhelmingly a talking point used against the left, and by agreeing with anything that you say, I'm implicitly reaffirming the idea that this is some kind of biased problem. And I notice when I look at your YouTube channel,
he literally just said like he said verbatim that like he can't agree with anything Ahrelevant says because it gives like ammo to the right, which now shows that, which I mean, it is a debate, so I understand that, but like it shows that like he's not willing to give, like he's admitting that he can't give ground to things that like 99% of the rest of society recognizes to be not objective truths, but like subjective realities that we all notice, even if we can't put it like an exact word to it. And yeah, so like I said, I don't consider that being bad faith. I just think he's in debate mode, which gets you to the end of a conversation where Vaush may optically win, even though I'm siding more with Ahrelevant, but it's like we're not.
Cancel culture when the left does it and never when the right does it. So I don't know if you've bought the Kool-Aid a little bit too in that respect. That's kind of my
Now
worry
he's shaping him
coming
as a
into
conservative
this. I don't
again.
think
Wait,
you're acting
okay.
in bad faith. I think that hypocrisy is the big thing that drives your behavior here. The perceived
So
hypocrisy.
So if you want to talk about my YouTube channel and how I talk to primarily people on the left, that's just because that's primarily the people who I have access to even have a conversation with on Twitch. Like Dylan Burns talks about this consistently, how impossible it is to find conservatives to be able to talk about shit because there's no conservative streamers. Like that's just the facts. There's like fucking 3. Right? Like I'm not going to be able to, I don't have a very large pool of people to be able to talk to. 1 and 2, I don't think that on Twitch politics, a lot of their opinions are very relevant. If you want to talk about overall whether or not they're relevant, absolutely. Like they absolutely are. But then like I'm going to fall into the same pit that like everybody criticizes other people for, where like I guess I could debate Lauren Southern, but then I'm going to get fucking canceled for that because I'm platforming Lauren Southern.
You don't have to talk with people. Have you spoken with Hassan, or have you just talked about Hassan?
Nobody can talk with Hassan. What do
well,
you mean?
yeah, so who you can talk to has nothing to do with it. Hassan is as distant to you as Philip DeFranco is. You will never talk to him, and honest to God, I probably never will either. He is so big. But if I look at your YouTube channel, you don't post too often, but the 3 most recent videos are a rapid fire of Hassan hypocrisy stuff. I think, resulting, Hassan perpetuates white suburbs. Here's why. Hassan and LSF, don't want you to see this meme. Hassan responds to Ben Shapiro. Whereas, and I know I'm not going to find any examples here of you calling out like Philip DeFranco or like any large news pundit or even like some of the like larger, more apolitical leaning types. Hell, Video Game Donkey has talked about how he doesn't like Trump. Have we seen him put his money where his mouth is? I don't know. So with all of that being said, it does feel like we're all kind of leaning a little bit on the hypocrisy angle, which is one I just don't relate to. If your general prescription is we should make an effort to encourage political pundits to live by their principles, to donate their money, then I agree with you completely. I just go about it in a different way. I think we should be positive and affirmative because the alternative, like denouncing and like this person's bad and stuff, causes a lot of division and infighting, which is ultimately destructive to our movement. And my goal is...
Somebody literally just said this earlier in the chat, that Vaush's big issue is against lefty infight, which is true. I mean, and even though he does infighting, like, I don't know, like, it's weird because Vaush, and I think rightfully so, casts people out of the left pretty often. Not like unmerited, but like Vaush says that like tankies aren't on the left, tankies are right wing, which again I can agree with for some reason. Like I agree with, but so if he holds this belief, then he does have some standard for what it means to be on the left. It's bigger than self-identity. It's bigger than people that consider themselves leftists. Like Vaush has some standard for what he is willing to accept or tolerate as someone he considers to be a leftist, like to whatever degree. And even if that person self-IDs as someone on the left, Vaush will not respect or recognize them if they don't meet whatever that standard is. So, like, and the reason is because he considers it hypocrisy. Like, he considers tankies hypocrites because they're in favor of, like, he considers them to be in favor of authoritarianism and fascism, which is, and I mean, like, in a number of words, an argument for hypocrisy. Like he's saying they're being hypocritical to the movement that you claim. Now, it's not personal hypocrisy, but it's like, I guess, political hypocrisy. So like, I don't understand why Vaush is claiming that that's a bad thing or that standards are bad when, like I said, he uses them in his everyday life in dealing with politics. He just doesn't personally agree with this standard. That's literally all he's the only point he's making. He left the invites with people who consider themselves to be on the left. He just doesn't consider them to be on the left because they don't meet whatever his standard is, which is something fair to do when you think someone considering someone to be on the left is bad for the movement, and some people could consider Hassan to be bad for the movement. I don't. I don't know if he's like. I don't know if he's useful, but he's not. I don't think he's bad. But like, if someone said like, oh, like, or if Destiny, for example, if Destiny says that like Hassan's not really on the left because he's like a capitalism thriver who like is grifting, like, like even though like anyone else can push back on him, like that's someone else having a different set of standards than Vaush. And I think Vaush has to accept that different people have different standards. He doesn't have to agree with them. He can fight back against them. But like, I don't know. I feel like to a degree he's making himself like somewhat of an arbitrator of truth. Like he's setting up like his standard of leftism is like the objective leftism, and like the objective right way of handling situation, like the objectively pragmatic way of handling this situation. And I know he would never agree to. He would never say as much. Like if you asked him about this, he would say like, no, I don't. Like these are all just my opinions or whatever. But that's not the way he frames the conversation. Like he is framing the conversation as Ahrelevant is incorrect here, not just like a difference in opinion, but like what Ahrelevant's doing is wrong.
Always, of course, a strong socialist movement.
So then I'm just curious because it genuinely feels like there's literally nothing I can do to convince you that I'm good faith at this point. So I'm giving up on that.
Wait. You have to stop doing that. I'm not accusing you of being bad faith. I'm accusing you of having biases, which we all have.
Okay. No, you are heavily implying that.
I'm not. I'm not implying anything. I've stated outright how I feel about this. I feel like the hypocrisy angle is the big one for you. Because if it wasn't, then you would be seeing these criticisms made all over the place.
Vaush, can you meet me halfway when I say that you're implying that I am bad faith? When I say to you that I am not drilling the hypocrisy angle, when I preface me going off
I'm
about
not watching 3 more hours of this.
On the conservative thing and how like there's a difference between ignorance and malice and things like this. This was the position that other people were coming to when they were. Right, so I'm not laughing at them or saying that they're a hypocrite. I've yet to do it here.
Well, I know it's moved me over. Lord knows I've changed some of my positions over the course of the time that I've been doing this, and never once has it been done by people online like accusing me of being a hypocrite because I'm this, that, or the other. It's always been like every single time people like sitting down and talking with me and making like a positive, like what felt like a sympathetic and well-intentioned argument in my favor. And that does not even involve calling a person a hypocrite. I mean, that kind of seals people off.
I think I moved Vaush's position on reparations.
I mean,
because of this.
He
hasn't had a larger conversation about reparations.
Sure. I mean, everything that I've said in regards to like canvassing or fundraising has no more important hypocrisy. There's no hypocrisy angle there. The only thing I even
be open to like discussing the issues if you want to change people's minds.
Paying people
I do agree with that.
For you. That's the only thing that I made that argument to. But I'm just trying to specifically address, like, I think we could be doing significantly better than a shit-posting Twitter account. I don't think that we should leave the canvas.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't watch Hassan stuff. Like I said, I mean, he could be super useful. I just, like I said, I'm just saying that, like, if someone else has some like their own set of standards and they don't find them useful, like we have to understand that those are differences in opinions, and we can argue for and against those opinions, but like there is no objectivity with that. Like it's just argument. Like we're all just like, we have to recognize that it's all just our opinions, which Vaush is pretty good at. Like I even think now he understands he's just giving an opinion, but he's giving his opinion in a way that's framing, but he's framing the opinion as objective, even though he clearly recognizes it's just an opinion.
Up to the people who are just millionaires or what have you, or people that make less money than people who are some of our most affluent. I think it is a damn shame that we live in like a country where we like one of the most wealthy countries where we have some of the most wealthy people that we have access to be able to change the discourse around, and we advocate for them to do nothing. Like that we have don't hold them to any kind of moral responsibility. We just say, hey, we just wish you could do something else. Like it feels like at that point we're just waiting for people to give us opportunities to canvas instead of creating our own opportunities to canvas and mobilize our viewer base or influence. And we're just hoping that somebody else does it, and then we can direct our audience in their direction. Why not do the advocacy ourselves? Why not advocate that we do that?
But we
and
can. It's
through
only
moral
the condemnation
responsibility.
and the hypocrisy angles that I disagree with. I have said on stream, and you can ask people in my chat, I've said multiple times that I do think Hassan sits in his laurels, that he wants to be like a workaholic, like frat boy, like lean there and react Andy and never actually dip his toes in directly because he's, you know, I don't know if it's necessarily lazy because he streams 3 times as much as I do. It seems like more of a willingness to carve out his own niche and not to dilute that by like making himself adjacent to more traditional political organizing, which is what you would do through fundraising or like canvassing or that kind of stuff.
Do you think?
I don't think that's
Sorry.
good. I don't think that's good. I think he should do better than that.
Right. So do you think that by not
Appreciate it, Jola.
because
All right.
maybe we're just
Hey,
going to
stay
disagree
up, bro.
on the approach because that's where it sounds like we're at, right? Do you think that like it would not encourage people into the future to continue down the same path if we don't set a precedent that this
Or
is
Jala.
not something that we should do, that this is a bad thing to do?
Well, you can't. I mean, the distinction between when does it become a bad thing to not do a good thing is really something I don't have a strong moral answer for. The only thing that I can really do, and I don't want to like be boring when I say this or whatever, but the only thing that I can really do is just advocate for people to do good things. Anything, discourage them from doing harmful things. Anything outside of that, like some kind of broader discussion on when you do a good thing so hard that you need to be expected to do another gooder thing or whatever, which is kind of what we're talking about here, right? There's not even any illegitimacy to those arguments. Like I said earlier, I do think the Democratic Party takes up space.
There's no legitimacy to any of these arguments. Like we're all just on the internet giving our prescription for the way we want to see the world. Like something not being objectively true has never prevented us from making any conversation on anything before. Why does Vaush advocate for socialism? Why does he think that like he doesn't just want socialism? He thinks that like America should be socialist, should definition 3 as like capitalism is bad. Like we have an obligation to be that. Like obviously it's like, you know, like it's not objective. I can't show, like he can't draw it up in the like stars and like prove it. It's literally just him like prescriptively trying to apply his framework to the rest of society, which is this can easily apply to the Hassan situation or anyone else. So I don't know why he's like doing this.
By arguing against Republicans, but doing so from like a tepid neoliberal angle, I think they make it harder for real left parties to form. I'm not arguing against the philosophy of doing good things in ways that leaves open bad outcomes or anything like that. I just don't like the way this is handled. And keep in mind, we're talking about this in the most like sanitized way right now, you know? Like, I'm looking at your YouTube thing right now, and that YouTube short that you have is you like scream laughing at a video, which is basically saying that Hassan changed his principles when he made more money. Do you mind if I play that really quickly for my stream?
You can do what you want. Yeah, it's yours.
Gotcha.
Okay, really quickly. Okay, here, guys.
The grossly affluent is a moral obscenity, and our economic system inevitably leads to oppressive and exploitative power hierarchies. Redistribution is the only ethical option. But now that I think about it a little more clearly, is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? I think I heard that in a video game once. And you know,
He literally did the meme, dude. He did the meme.
That is literally like, is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? Is a BioShock Andrew Ryan reference that is supposed to be libertarian, right? But actually, it is
True. However, I think the implication here is that Hassan changed his perspective on this because he got money, and I don't know if there's any way of demonstrating that, right?
I don't think there is either.
Of demonstrating it, or you don't think...
I don't think there's a way of demonstrating that he's like, if there was, I would clip that. And like,
just, I don't know. It just, Because this is like the tone of discourse that I see so
Okay,
often,
sure.
you know,
So
where it's
if you
not.
wa- if you
It's
wanna
like
ask- yeah.
it's like at the end of the day, it's like Hassan
So,
makes money. Look at how he defends himself. Look at the
if you,
socialist stance,
if
right?
you want me to run down all of my grievances with Hassan, I can really quick, so that way you can have it all on the record, so that way you know exactly where I'm coming from. Right? So I think it is really shit how after the editor drama, he proceeded to talk about how he wanted to set up a co-op for his editors. And the people running his YouTube. Then he proceeded to go on H3's podcast and then say he doesn't want to set up a co-op for his editors, not because it would be hard, which honestly, if he said that, yeah, that shit would be hard. Could you imagine trying to set up a co-op for like YouTube people? That
It's
sounds
pretty hard,
incredibly
yeah.
hard.
It's pretty-
Yeah, like I was fully expecting that. I would have accepted that hands down, walked away, been happy. No, what he said was it was like, because I am the primary producer of the content, I don't think a co-op would be appropriate. And I was like, I understand it, but like that's I really
there's
didn't
a legitimate
like that
argument to be made there, right?
I think there is, but
the thing with a cooperative is that collective ownership is kind of the name of the game there. The problem, though, is that when you're like in a media org, like if you're a Twitch streamer or a YouTuber, you can never really have like a fair or equal or in front of the camera, I'm sorry. So in that case, a worker cooperative would only really be like a shared payment structure, because in reality, there's no way for anyone other than the person in a virtue signal. I do pay sharing for sure, but in terms of ownership, they could take the channel, I'm Vaush. It's an innate characteristic, you know? Yeah.
I understand. And the way that it came off to me wasn't the way that you said it there. And that's the reason why I had the grievance there. Now, I couldn't do it justice or what have you, right? It was just the way that it came off to me. That was a grievance that I had. The grievance that I had was that all of the arguments that he made during the editor drama clearly showed that he had no understanding about actual like socialism at all. He made the argument about how he gave his editor a computer, and that meant he had the means of the production.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Look, if what Vaush said is correct, only if he made the decision to go with like the pay share thing situation, which according to people, again, I don't know like if he's actually doing it, but according to y'all, seems like he's not doing. So I don't know. Like I said, it is good. It's just everything he does comes off really bad. If you have like this principal position of like, you know what, I want to do this thing because like, yeah, that wouldn't make sense. Now, to be completely fair, he could have, I don't know, like he could just be stupid. He could have not like realized an owner. He feels like they're like they don't deserve it. Like he deserves the large share he gets. Like the other workers aren't as valuable to him. Like they don't produce a surplus value. Like, which, I mean, I don't know. Sounds kind of capitalist. Sounds cappy. Sounds free. Whatever.
Yeah,
Well,
so
yeah,
there
I
was,
guess when I
19
see that, I mostly just see that like Hassan's a dumb fuck who has his foot in his mouth 24/7. That's why he's so tall, you know, so he can reach and do the full fucking like wraparound. But
Well,
I don't know, like if our argument is like editors should be paid like really well, I think that about everyone, not just Hassan. But nobody pays attention to the editors of other big YouTubers or Twitch streamers. They never even get talked about. It only gets talked about with like Hassan. It's like, so in a way, I think I'm just saying, in a way, it feels like this behavior actually normalizes the bad behavior, because what it's essentially saying is that, hey guys, as long as you're not a socialist, nobody's gonna pay attention to whatever shit you're doing. You know, if you're a socialist, then you'll be scrutinized for it, and that's good. But if you're not, nobody will care. And if they do care, then you can just say like, whatever, free market, dude, and nobody will pay attention, because it's not actually about affecting good behavior. It's about the hypocrisy argument.
Hypocrisy is a good argument.
This again, I just want to address
Right?
that specific.
I mean, a little.
so
This is okay. I think I'm. Man, I am. I'm 35. There's no way. There's literally no way I could watch 3 hours and 50 minutes of the video. I am. Yeah, I'm calling it. I'm calling it here. We did good. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I think the Vaush is a good guy. Does good things. This was a not great argument, at all. I exactly, exactly, Moon. We did good, but yeah, this wasn't a strong argument by Vosh. I don't know if he hasn't been in the gym, like getting his working his debate tactics out or whatever. But I don't know. Like the Ahrelevant dude was just Hank, you've watched it twice. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I don't think he came out as strong overall. Um Appreciate it, Cosmic. Like, yeah, I really do appreciate it. Like all of this means a lot. It wasn't like tons of us in here chatting, but I'm glad we got to like hang out and like actually talk through a lot of this video. This is always fun. Like I'm glad I started doing this. I can easily see myself becoming, well, not like addicted, but like really enjoying doing this regularly, as long as there's like something to actually come out and talk about. I ended up doing a panel on what's his name on Prime's stream last night. It was like super late. I don't know if he's gonna post it or not. It was really fun. So trying to like I think I'm trying to like insert myself into the larger community, and hopefully we just keep on building. We're going to the moon, slowly but surely. Either way, yeah. Like I said, I don't know if I'm gonna do anything tonight or not. I doubt it. Probably gonna get some rest. I have no idea. That could change, but I doubt it. Either way, like thank y'all for like coming in here and checking me out. Thanks for like hanging out with me and us getting through some of this video and doing other things. I'll definitely do another stream. I don't know, tomorrow, next day. I don't really have a schedule yet. I'm just gonna stream whenever I feel like streaming, or I feel like there's something I want to talk about, or even if I don't have anything to talk about and I just want to hang out. So y'all, like I said, give me a like. I was about to say, hit the bell. I feel like we're doing like the YouTube and Twitch stuff, like just like it just so y'all know whenever some stuff is going on. Like yeah, I definitely want to like keep hanging out with y'all. So anyways, y'all get some rest. Have a good night. Love y'all.